What's up, guys? You may or may not know me. My name is Zach. So today I wanted to talk about something that happened about 2 years ago, back in 2023. There was a predator catcher named Robert Wayne Lee. He would go out posing as a 15-year-old girl online to expose predators on both Facebook and Instagram. His encounters often got heated as he was a very loud and brash person. It's a pretty stark contrast to the people we see now just simply having conversations and getting arrests, like Jadeon or my friend Alex Rosen. His content was much more similar to those like DAP, aka Dads Against Predators, though Bupak didn't come out looking to fight. Though I'm not gonna say he was scared to swing on people if they got aggressive. Check this out.
We'll make a left. Hit him. Hit.
What up?
God,
What up?
you do something,
What up? What up?
God damn.
What? What?
Touch me again.
Yeah, don't ever swing on me. I'll whoop your ass. What?
Man,
Fuck out of here, you
look,
pedophile ass bitch.
That wasn't his go-to method all the time, though. While he was brash and insulting the predators, he would often have real conversations with them. He was what most would call a vigilante, and if you ask me, he was doing God's work. He's been doing it for years. And now, of course, he would meet these people in public, causing a scene often and getting loud, embarrassing them and shaming them in front of the community, which I think is one of the best ways to handle this. Of course, aside from getting law enforcement involved, that's going to be the best way every time. Now, Bupak was definitely a catch and release type of guy as far as I could tell. His goal was to expose and shame people rather than the new goal that predator catchers mostly seem to have, which is getting people arrested. I do think both are pretty effective, though I definitely do prefer when law enforcement gets involved, because when you catch and release these guys, what you end up with is a more cautious and careful predator who now knows what to look out for when they're looking to find a child to groom and sexually assault. Unfortunately, though, in 2023, Bupak would make a fatal mistake. On September 29th, 2023, on a Friday night, Bupak confronted two men at a restaurant, an 18 and a 17-year-old, accusing the 17-year-old of being a pedophile. Now, there are conflicting reports of the alleged age of the man that he was confronting. Most sources say that he's 17, but according to oakgov.com, it states that at the time, the alleged victim of Bupak's beratement was actually 16. This is something that, of course, Bupak should have confirmed prior. If he had, he may have walked away with his life. He confronted the teen, and according to oakgov.com, here's what happened. Charges stem from an incident that occurred on September 29th, 2023 in Pontiac. At approximately 10:30 p.m., it's alleged that the victim entered a restaurant in Pontiac where the then 16-year-old defendant and his 18-year-old friend were already seated at a booth. Security camera footage shows Mr. Lee approach the juvenile's friend before engaging him in a physical altercation. At the time, the defendant can be seen pulling out a semi-automatic firearm from his waistband. The defendant then aims directly at the victim and fires multiple rounds, striking the victim. Then, the juvenile and his friend fled the location, leaving the victim behind. Law enforcement was called to the scene where they found the victim. Mr. Lee was then transported to the hospital for medical attention and ultimately died as a result of his injuries. There's honestly so much conflicting information. I can't really find out whether the guy he was confronting was the 18-year-old or the 16-year-old in the altercation, but the facts are that he chose to assault the 16-year-old, and in response, the 18-year-old pulled out a knife and the 16-year-old pulled out an illegal firearm before shooting Bupak dead. It's tragic at the end of the day, no matter how you spin it. A young man, whether he was a pedophile or not, is now locked up in the system, and a man who believed he was doing the right thing, even if his methods weren't always right, is dead. People, of course, took both sides, defending the juvenile and Bupak. One look at Bupak's Facebook page, and 2 years later, people are still posting and mourning him. And you know, had I had known about him at the time, I definitely would have supported him as well. Bupak's life was cut short because he was out doing dangerous acts of vigilantism, and I hope he rests in peace. Regardless of who he was or what he did during his life, I see a lot of people saying Bupak had his own sets of problems, so I'm even mocking his name and noting the irony of naming yourself after a rapper who was also shot dead. A quick Google search led me to the DAP Wikipedia page and lists a few of Bupak's crimes, such as destruction of property, as well as accusing innocent people of being pedophiles, and even slashing someone's tires to prevent an alleged pedophile from driving away. Bupak had cited both DAP and To Catch a Predator as his biggest inspirations. These conflicts don't always end well. I've seen a video of Alex Rosen having a gun pulled on him. Unfortunately, he escaped with his life, making the right decision and immediately disengaging with the predator and allowing him to leave. When I interviewed Alex in 2024, he told me that he had experienced another similar moment, where a man pulled a gun on a bystander who recognized Alex and came to join in on the confrontation. Fortunately, nobody was harmed. Alex told me that it was easily the scariest moment of doing this, and that nothing had even come close. I don't know whether or not that's still the case, since like I said, Alex has now experienced having a gun pulled on him firsthand. There was another similar incident a while back in 2022 on June 28th, 2022. Three members of DAP arrived at a Target in Winston-Salem, North Carolina. The supposed predator had originally actually tried to meet the girl at an abandoned quarry, which is absolutely terrifying once you learn how things go down. They managed to convince him to meet at the Target, where they confronted him, and now of course, DAP style is much more aggressive than others, and they almost always open up with battery of some sort. In most cases, that's a slap to the predator's face. Now this time, the predator responded, slapping the camera out of the hands of the filmer, and this called a fight to break out, in which the predator brandished and discharged a firearm, shooting one of the founders of DAP, Carnicorn, in the leg. Fortunately, Carnicorn survived this encounter, being driven to a hospital afterwards, and honestly, he took it like a champ in the video. If you can find it, it's worth a watch. It's not graphic at all, it's just pretty badass in my opinion. Afterwards, the Winston-Salem PD actually issued a warrant for all 3 vigilantes, as well as the man who discharged the firearm. DAP's members have been arrested multiple times, of course, and usually they just post bail for an open-handed slap because it's surprisingly cheap. Catching predators is always going to be dangerous. There's one more event that's pretty damn crazy, and I actually saw it live, and it was terrifying. I was convinced I was about to watch a man die. Colorado Pet Patrol's Thomas Fellows, one of my personal favorite catchers, while meeting one of his potential predators, Tommy made a dangerous mistake in following the man into an area where he couldn't see him after confronting him. He walked behind a fence into a very grassy area where the man brandished a knife and lunged at Tommy. Tommy fell to the ground and began pleading for his life. It was terrifying to watch, and fortunately, the man decided to spare Tommy, and even weirder is that they actually ended up walking the same way back onto the road. It was super awkward. And I imagine pretty scary for Tommy, especially when Tommy tried to yell for help with the other guy 10 feet in front of him, and unfortunately the truck driving by didn't even bother to stop. Fortunately, in this situation, Tommy was also able to get away mostly unharmed, just scratched up a little bit from the foliage he fell into. Believe it or not, I was actually getting ready to start doing predator catching on this channel, but unfortunately it ended up falling through because both my cars broke down and I wasn't able to meet up with the predators. I gotta admit, it was pretty scary though how quick people were willing to pursue a minor. It makes me realize the dangers these predator catchers really go through for their content and to do what they believe is right. If you think you respect them, you don't respect them enough. I give mad props to them, and I pray that God keeps them safe in their travels. Predator catching is always going to be dangerous. There's never going to be a time that it's not dangerous. You can think you have the control of the situation all you want, but it is always going to be dangerous. There's always going to be an air of uncertainty. You know, recently there were children that tried to go out, actual children who used themselves as decoys, and one of them actually ended up getting kidnapped. Fortunately, the suspect was apprehended and the kid was returned to his parents, but that's a terrifying thought. Why are kids so inspired by these predator catchers? People need to understand, you know, myself included, I was about to go out and do it, that this isn't for everybody. It seems like a trend. It seems like something anyone can do. It seems like a quick ticket to fame, but there's so much more to it than that. You know, you're confronting people that have nothing left to lose. They are the scum of the earth. They're going for our country and our world's most vulnerable people. And who knows how these people are going to react when they're caught? Who knows what they're going to do when they're faced with the consequences of their actions? It's a terrifying prospect, and it's something that these people need to remember, and I'm sure the people at the top all know this, but you know, when you have smaller people like those children that went out and used themselves as decoys, and myself, it's so easy to overlook how dangerous this can actually be. So if there's anybody watching this who's considering going out and starting to do predator catches, please just be careful. You know, I'm never going to tell anybody don't pursue what you want to do, but just be so careful. You know, had I gone to the park and met one of these guys, there's a very good chance that I could have been shot, or a very good chance that I could have been stabbed. And I'm not the biggest guy, you know, I'm wide, but I'm not tall. There's a very good chance I could have gotten my ass beat, or I could have gotten jumped. So if you're gonna do it, just go with a friend maybe, but you know, then you put both of yourselves at risk, and find people that understand the danger. But above all else, if you're gonna do this, or you know somebody who does this or wants to do this, you just have to understand that that danger is always gonna be a factor. We talked about 4 different people today, all who got into very dangerous situations because of their profession, but only 3 of them were lucky enough and fortunate enough to walk away with their lives, and that could have very easily been less. But that's all I really got for you guys today. There's not much more to say on the topic. You know, it is interesting that predator catching has become a sort of trend now on the zeitgeist that is the internet. I've been watching these guys, specifically Alex Rosen, since I was about 12 years old, which is why it was such a crazy trip when I met the guy in person, and now I can call him a friend. And it's even weirder to see that this has all become pretty mainstream, and now people are doing it because it's trendy. Obviously, social media platforms are cracking down on this now. YouTube's already taken a bunch of steps in place to make sure that these people aren't doing these things the wrong way, requiring law enforcement involvement every time you post a catch on YouTube if you want to get monetized. And I'd say that's honestly for the best. So, with all that being said, I'll catch you guys in the next one. Take care.